Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom. And so we usually have totally awesome, try something new and talk about it Tuesday. And I think we're all kind of, really overwhelmed with that try something new thing. So I'm going to talk about something a little bit different than that. I'm going to talk about leaning into all of the change that is kind of being thrown at us and coming out a little bit better for it. And you're actually going to get to see me demonstrate that over the next, weeks to months, because I'm selling my house, and this is a kind of an unusual time to do that. And it seems like everything is in a state of change. Like yesterday, they staged my house, so it seems like I'm living in a foreign place. And like that picture behind me, it isn't mine, and I'm not crazy about it. So even finding a place to set up and do the show was a little bit of a challenge. So, but whatever change you have to accept in your life, if you do just lean into it and accept it and know that it's going to be okay, it's just a moment in time, then it's going to be a lot easier on you. You'll not have to spend all that time that you are going to be stressing about it. And then you can do something that you actually enjoy. So we have a really great show planned for today. My guest is Dr. Melissa Bird, and she is in the process of creating a kind of cool vision. And so we're going to talk to her about that and, how she's dealing with that as she goes along, and specifically in these times that are kind of challenging. So Dr. Bird is a PhD and an MSW, and a Master of Social Work. And she's a passionate feminist whose education in social work has led to a career advocating for children, women, and families. She's a fierce believer in social justice advocacy and preparing women for leadership roles in their communities. She guides women to harness their power, amplify their voice, and bring meaningful growth to their world. As a life coach, author, and public speaker, Dr. Bird creates the genesis for a new brand of leadership and graceful revolution. Her words awaken revolutionaries, trailblazers, and powerful innovators in the quest for justice. When she's not building her public speaking business, she can be found reading trashy novels, drinking fine whiskey, playing mom to 3 delicious humans, and loving her punk rock scientist, James Thomas Kelly. So she has a free book called Natural Born Rebel. And you can get that by going to that website, Natural Born Rebel. And now I'd like to introduce Melissa, and we'll find out what she's doing.
Hi,
Hi,
Kate.
how
Hi.
are you?
Good. How are you? It's nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I see there's been a few changes.
Oh, there's lots of changes. I shaved my head.
Yes, I saw that. I remember, I think, what color was it
It
before?
was fire red, right?
Fire
So it was
red,
really
yeah.
red.
So,
And then I had an appointment, and I thought, we're going into a pandemic. And I'd been thinking about it for like 6 weeks. I was thinking, gosh, I've never shaved my head before ever. And I was like, I wonder what'll happen. And so then it was like, I took like Demi Moore from G.I. Jane. Like I had this moment where I was like, I'm going to be like Demi Moore and Pink, the musician. And I'm just going to like go for it and shave my head. And so I did.
well, you know what? It was a good idea. I'm not saying that everybody should shave their head, but I just listened to a recording from someone who has been tracking the research that they've been doing in China on the COVID-19. And I guess the virus can stay in your hair and your clothes. And so they advise when you do go out and you're in contact with people and then you come back in, that you immediately take a shower before you do anything else.
Right. We've been doing that in our house, actually. Well, we haven't been out for almost 10 days now, but when we were still having to go out, we were doing exactly that. So it's kind of funny because my husband wanted his head shaved after I did it. And then my son wanted his head shaved after I did it. The girls haven't shaved their head, but it was sort of funny because nobody knew I was doing it. I kept it a secret and I just showed up back at home and everyone was like, oh, what have you done? Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was really fun.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit more about, what brought you to your current path, what you're doing now.
So I'm a lifelong rebel, and also a lifelong advocate. And so actually what brought me to this place where Natural Born Rebel was created and conceived was I'm a big believer in signs and messages from God and from the universe. And I was teaching a class down in San Bernardino, California. So I was teaching virtually on Zoom, but once a month I would go down to San Bernardino and teach in the classroom at the university. I was teaching Masters of Social Work students, MSW students. And I was in a Lyft on the way to the airport to come back up to Oregon. And I got a phone call from my friend Susie, who I had been on a retreat with a couple of years ago in Scotland. And Susie never calls, never. She called and she's like, so I have this vision for you and I need you to write all this stuff down. And I was like, okay. So she said, I need you to create Natural Born Rebel. I need you to write a book. These are the things that need to be in it. And I need you to just do this right now. And I was like, well, that's interesting. What a twist. Because before I'd been running my business as Bird Girl Industries and, and so, and I created programs and I've been doing coaching for a while, done a lot of speaking. And so she said, well, I really think it's time for you to launch Natural Born Rebel and tell us what it means to be a Natural Born Rebel. And she gave me some language and I hung up the phone and kind of giggled. And I was like, well, this is interesting. So I talked to my Lyft driver about it and he was like, that's fascinating stuff. Like you should do that. It sounds cool. So I get to the airport, I get in the plane. I'm thinking about what Susie said. And I was like, well, I may as well just knock some stuff out and see what happens. And because, when you're on a plane and you don't have anybody talking to you, you can do anything. It's like a magical miracle moment point, right? Where you can just be like, you can do anything. So I started writing, and what ended up happening is I wrote the whole book on the plane.
Wow.
Like I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And in an hour and a half, I had completely written that entire book. It just fell out of me. And I often tell my clients, if it's easy, that's where you should be headed. If it's hard, that's not your path. And in this instance, it was absolutely true. Like, it just came out of me. And what I created then was my Natural Born Rebel book, but also the language around creating programs where people can tap into their passion and what really lights them on fire and use their rebellion, because rebels are really creators and innovators and change makers. Mm-hmm. And in school, we're punished for that because we think outside the box. That's what we do. And so my vision is really to help people tap into their rebellion and make a difference in their communities. That's really my goal in life. And so, but it's been funny because I have people who come into Rebel School, which is one of my programs. They come into Rebel School and they're like, I've never been a rebel. I'm like, well, tell me about your life. And, you know, I'll have people say, well, when all my friends were drinking and doing drugs in high school, I was sober. And I was like, rebellion. And it shifts the way because we think that it's like the James Dean rebel without a cause, right? Mm-hmm. But really, rebellion is all about going against the grain in whatever position that you're in. And it's about really thinking creatively and outside the box. And so that's what I've been working on for the last, I guess it's been about a year and a half.
Well, I also think that it's like being in touch with your inner self and being aligned with that rather than, you know, going along with the crowd.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think there is something about, something very revolutionary about listening to your own voice and really tapping into your divine assignment and why you're put here on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I think that often we forget to stop resisting and just fall into the surrender of what it means to be our true authentic selves. Because sometimes we don't know who that is anymore, right? Sometimes we've lost that. And so I think for a lot of people, if we can really think about how we can walk down that path we don't feel ready to walk down, right? But we know we have to, because if we don't, we're not listening to that true calling of our heart. And I think that's what's really important. It was really funny, Kate, the other day, my assistant had created these beautiful memes for me about staying at home. Like, the natural state of rebellion is to actually stay at home. And she had taken my words out of my book and created all these posts. And I was like, did I really say all that stuff? And she's like, yes, it's totally relevant right now. Isn't that great? And I was like, so it's really funny when you start walking your path, everything just becomes so much easier and so much clearer. And I think that is its own very special form of rebellion, to actually do what you were put here to do instead of what everybody else expects you to do.
Yes. So you're trying to pursue a big dream. And how has that experience been for you? And well, you told us why you decided to do it now, but how has doing it now been?
Remind me which big dream I told you I was pursuing.
Okay, you're trying to create a place.
Oh, the Mermaid's Garden.
Yes.
Yes. So while I was in Scotland, in fact, on that very fateful trip where I met Susie, we were staying in a castle, and it was lovely, and it had its own forest. And I was walking through the forest, and I lay down on the ground to take a nap, and I had this dream, and I had this vision that I was going to create a space a lot like where I was in Scotland, and that we would have a retreat where people could come and connect back to themselves and back to the land and create communities for themselves, and that I would facilitate a space where people could come from all over the world and make that happen. And at the same time, my husband decided that he wanted to start a fish farm, but do aquaculture, do sustainable, environmentally friendly aquaculture instead of the awful farming that's happening right now with fish, which is really bad for us and really bad for the environment. Mm-hmm. And so we created the Mermaid's Garden, and that's why it's called the Mermaid's Garden, is because He's a Pisces. I'm a Libra. I'm connected to the land. He's connected to the fishes. So we really want to create a space, particularly for veterans and disabled veterans, as well as coaches and healers and people who need a place where they can bring people to really reconnect to themselves and to other people. And we started pursuing that about a year ago in earnest. And the property I had picked out, we didn't get. Although someday I hope it comes back on the market. But so we are really, and it's a funny time to be looking, as you know, you're thinking about moving, right? Like, it's a funny time to be looking for 20 to, you are moving.
Yes.
It's a funny time to be looking at 20 to 50 acres of land to pursue this big dream. But I'm really excited about it. And I think that having held that vision for the last 3 years and finally taking steps to do something about it has been really remarkable, because none of it has happened the way I thought it would. But just starting to talk to people about it and having people say, yes, please, I need a space like that for whatever, for so-and-so, or for my coaching retreats, or for, this or that, has been really remarkable. And the support we have is just all over the world, from people all over the world, has been really amazing. So I hope we can make it happen in the next little bit.
Oh, I'm sure you can. That's a lot of land, though.
It is. It's amazing how big 20 to 50 acres is when you actually stand on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. But, we need a forest, and we need a big space to have fishes.
Okay.
In big, gigantic tanks. So
yeah, I wonder,
so big.
Now it all fits together. But from the pieces that I heard before, the first thing that hit me was, this is another side of Melissa. This, this doesn't sound quite how I perceived you before, but it does fit in, though.
It does fit in. I mean, it really, being able to just give people the space and the ability to calm themselves into reconnecting to their spirit, I think is so important.
Mm-hmm. So how have you overcome any obstacles that you've met along the way? Or
well, I've met many obstacles along my way. I think back all the way to the time, when as a kid, a lot of the ways that I have coped with things is to read. Reading is like my lifeline. I feel like if I have a book and I have an ability to kind of escape into that place, it always brings me back to my heart. And it really brings me back to my center. And it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, although I really do prefer trashy novels where I can just totally get lost. But nowadays they have to be really well written trashy novels. Like, I'm just not looking for just any pulp ridiculousness. But I have found that along my journey, I started reading when I was 3. And I very distinctly remember reading to my dad when I was little, sitting on the floor while he was getting ready to work, like shaving and stuff. And I remember him correcting me while I was reading Little Bear. And so I have always, every picture of me, even before I could read, I had a book in my hand. I have always been a reader. And so now that I am, we're in this pandemic, we're going through all this transition as society, and I'm, building this business and building these great, big, gigantic visions for big, graceful revolution all over. One of the things that has really struck me is that I still have to escape in those books to stay out of anxiety, out of fear. I have actually started working reading into my workday. And I'd actually like to thank Stephen King for that, because he wrote this beautiful book called On Writing, which, if you've never read it, whether you're a writer or not, whether you're a horror reader or not, Stephen King's book called On Writing is one of the most inspiring books I've ever read. And one of the things he said was, read every day as a part of being a writer, because I am a writer and I have written books. And for me, this idea that reading is a part of work was so freeing for me. And I was like, yes. So I literally set a timer in my workday to read. Yeah. And it helps me get out of my head and into that creative space, so that when I'm reading, thoughts will come to me constantly about where to go next or what to do next. And I'll just write them on down and move on. So that's one way. But the other way has been to surround myself with the people who are going to support me the most. And so I have friends that I call every single day. There's like a group of them, and I just run through them every day.
Right.
And that's another way that I have found to really connect how to do my work.
Great. So overcoming obstacles, I think everybody should have obstacles, I think, so that they can overcome them, because I think that's one of the greatest experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So what has that process given you in your life?
I think the best part about overcoming obstacles has been that I have found that I have a great deal of courage, and that no matter what life throws at me, I can still get through it, and it's okay. And I think it's so interesting that these are the questions that we're talking about right now, because I think all of us really need to just take a big collective deep breath, feel our feet on the ground, and just for 10 seconds, just take a deep breath and know that we are supported and loved by the earth.
Yes, and know that regardless of what happens, we're going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be okay.
And that we have to know that it's okay for people to get sick, and it's okay for people to die. And it's going to be a grief process, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be sad. But that if we listen to our instinct and we listen to our intuition, then the things that we are overcoming in life are going to be that much sweeter, when this is over. And
I think we are learning so much from this process.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we are. And I think we also have to remember that I have a great coach who I've worked with before named Mary Houston. And she always says, what we resist persists. And we have to remember that what we resist, what we force against, what we push against, it persists until we let it go and surrender.
Yes.
So we really need to just let go and surrender.
If this virus is not that lesson, I don't know what is.
Oh, I think that's exactly right. If what we are witnessing in the world right now is not that lesson in resistance and just letting it go and surrendering to the unknown. And, a lot of people that in my community and in the world I work in have been freaking out and going into a lot of scarcity mindset and thinking, I'm going to lose my business. I'm going to lose my livelihood. I mean, you're watching all these small business owners freaking out about, physical distancing and really losing it. And instead of thinking, okay, this is just going to have to happen for the safety of our community, how can I persevere through this? How can I surrender to this unknowing and hold on to the idea that I'm actually going to come out of this better?
Yes.
Instead of going into that fear response. I think we just have such a huge opportunity. And even if you're listening to this 5 years from now and there's no pandemic going on, we have opportunities regularly where we can fully surrender to what's happening.
What this is teaching us, they aren't like new things.
No.
They're things that in smaller ways we've been challenged with all along the way. And it's just like, it happens just about with everything. If you don't listen, then something bigger comes.
Yes.
And
I've actually been saying that a lot, Kate. I've been saying, Mother Earth is just sort of done. She gave us hurricanes and we were like, whatever. She gave us, dying oceans and we were like, whatever. And she gave us pollution, whatever. She gave us Greta, whatever. And then she was like, fine, here, have a pandemic.
And it's saying so many things.
Yeah.
saying we're all connected. It's saying, you know, it's really showing us what's important.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
giving us the opportunity to reconnect to our communities and to each other in a way that I think never could have happened otherwise.
and it's also showing us what's not important.
It is.
You know, so what does your business, Natural Born Rebel, have to do with your vision for the retreat center? How do those things tie together, or do they?
Well, so I think I think they tie together in a couple of ways. One of them is that it is a natural form of rebellion as a woman, and as a woman married to a disabled veteran, to have a vision that large. It really is. To have a vision that people will come from all over the world to reconnect to their spirit and to their bodies, I think is really rebellious in and of itself. I also have a huge vision it was actually given to me as a vision and a dream called the Graceful Revolution. And in the Graceful Revolution, there is this idea that if people understand how power happens and how communities operate and work in the world, and they are given the tools to infiltrate those membranes of power, then we can make change in America. And so for me, it's really important for people to also be able to have the space where they can learn how to farm, where they can learn how to do art in the way I've had a lot of coaches want a space where people can do art and be really expressive with their art. If we can start bringing people together who have mixed views and who don't see eye to eye, and teach them how to connect with each other on a human level, that is absolutely rebellious. And I want to have a space where people, I have a really good friend named Amy Wolf, who once a month, she's she's my conservative yin to my liberal yang, I guess is how you'd say it sometimes. And we balance each other out so perfectly. And once a month we have unscripted live conversations about really difficult and hard things. And I want to create a space where people can come and have difficult, hard conversations and start talking about how we envision the future and how we see things connecting. And so the Mermaid's Garden is really a place of opposites almost, where we're going to bring together saltwater fishing inland. And that in of itself is like a completely disparate thought and idea. And so I really love the idea of using my vision to help other people rebel on their own terms, in their own way.
I do something now separate from the radio show. It's a video blog called Soul Talks, where we talk about difficult subjects, or sometimes they're not difficult, but sometimes they are.
Yeah.
And
That's wonderful.
It's great to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to listeners about taking action to pursue their passions?
So the biggest thing for me in how I've made change in my life, and how I've watched my clients make change, and how I've worked as an advocate, I used to be a lobbyist. Like, the biggest thing is just doing little things and taking little actions. It's not about taking big, gigantic action, because little actions accumulate. And so it's just about thinking, what do I have to do today? What immediate need am I feeling today? What can I do today that's going to help my family, or help me, or help my business, or help my job, right? What immediate need what can I do right now? And then doing it. Because half the time we think, well, I really want to start a blog. But, back when blogging was awesome, but everybody else is doing it. I don't have a voice. Nobody's going to want to listen to me. So I'm just not going to do it. Instead of being like, I want to start a blog, and you just start a blog, right? Like, there's such a difference between the two. And so if you can allow your passion to really to birth your creations, because we need them. Yeah. So even though people say that blogging isn't cool anymore, right? like, I'm still blogging all the time.
Yeah.
So many people podcasting right now, and everyone's like, when are you going to do a podcast? I'm like, I don't know. Right now I'm on YouTube having a great time. So I don't know when I'm going to do that. So you got to find that thing that lights you on fire and do the thing. You have to do the thing that makes you excited, that turns you on, that totally does it for you, because that's the thing.
Yes.
And we need you to, because it's your divine assignment. Like, that's your job.
There's something I keep telling my son, and I keep repeating it, and one of these days it's going to stick, and he's going to do the awesome things that he wants to do, because he does want to do awesome things.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell him is do the hard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great book called Eat That Frog, and it's all about doing the hard stuff first instead of the easy stuff. But sometimes you have those days where you just have to give yourself a high five for putting the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll. Like, instead of complaining about it and bitching about it because one of your kids left it off, like, sometimes you just have to applaud the little stuff.
Yeah, true.
Especially when you're trapped in a house with 5 people and you can't leave.
Yeah, I can see that, yes. What is one thing you couldn't live without in pursuing your vision?
God, prayer, connection to spirit. And I'm a little unorthodox because I identify both as a Christian and as a witch. And so I have found that without my magic and without my prayer, I'm a mess. I can't create anything. I can't write anything. I can't inspire anything. And so for me, there are rituals that I tap back into. It's kind of like reading. If I have to have that balance between, I think it's that Libra in me, Kate, honest.
Yeah.
That balance between God and magic that helps me reconnect to my source and the true connection to my power, so that I am able to really speak from center and to speak from that my heart space, and to speak from spirit. Because I think that when I'm disconnected from those things and I'm not grounded both to the earth and to heaven, I can't function. And so for me, the way I run my business completely from my intuition and from my spiritual self. And so I couldn't live without those things.
So
I can't be in service to others without that connection.
Taking care of you, yes. So what would you say? Oh, I asked you that one already. So what are the next steps on your journey, and how are they coming together?
So one of the next steps is I need to finish my book. So I'm writing the book, The Graceful Revolution. And so I'm going to finish that. My goal is to have it done by the end of April. So I'm like halfway through it. And so I'm going to get the rest of the way through it. The other next step is for me to actually put the numbers to the spreadsheet for the Mermaid's Garden. So I actually know exactly how much money I need and how we need to move forward in creating that vision. And sometimes for people like me who tend to be more intuitive and who tend to kind of fly by the seat of their pants, putting numbers to anything is terrifying. So that's a big deal for me. And I think for a lot of business owners, especially small business owners, that's when it gets really serious. And so I think I've honestly been avoiding it because I don't want it to get super serious, but here we are. So I'm going to do that. And really the third step is for me to really explode this vision of connection and community that I have in this rebellion. And I think that the time, there's a reason I didn't do it last year. And now I know, because there's a global pandemic. So.
Yes, I think I collaborate a lot, and I have had several different ideas that I wanted to collaborate with people. Mm-hmm. And I even set the appointment to talk, and then I canceled and didn't follow through. Mm. And it kind of confused me. It was like, why do I keep doing this? Why am I holding back? Because I realized I was. And what it turned out to be is I can't do these ideas right now. So
there's a fine line between intuition and procrastination. You have to learn that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know that. This was a strong feeling, you know.
Yeah, it was that intuition, right? Like you're like, I'm not supposed to do this right now. Yeah.
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 So I know that you have a partner in crime in your current endeavor. How is collaborating on that vision for the two of you?
Which vision for?
I think the what you and your husband are doing together.
The Mermaid's Garden.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. We have very different ways of operating in the world. Jim is very he's very analytical. He's a scientist, and he is very, and even though I have a PhD, my PhD is in social work and it's in qualitative research. And so I help people tell their stories. So he starts talking, he's like, you have a PhD, and he starts rattling off science. And I'm like, no, I don't understand you. So we've had a couple of moments where we have a safe word where we can tell when things are ratcheting up and we're going to argue. And so one of us will pull the safe word and then we have to stop talking. So when we were doing our business plans, because, you got to come up with a business plan when you're running a big, huge project like this. And when we were doing our business plans, there were many times where I was like, I was like, we're done. Like, I can't anymore. Because a business plan is like a 50-page document. It's no small thing. So, and he's very scientific, and I'm trying to write the story of this big vision. And he's like, but we need numbers. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So we have had moments where it did not go so well, but we are holding that vision of creating this beautiful space for people to be. And so as long as we keep holding that vision, it starts coming together again and flowing together. And it's really lovely, but it's been a learning process for both of us in many ways. He also was a business owner before he went back to school. And so he used to run a construction business. And so
yeah, it always
interesting
between people that are collaborating, though. It doesn't matter, like you said, how educated you are or how, like I'm a coach. I tell other people ways to resolve issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that, like, say, with my realtor, she's, doing stuff in my house.
Yeah.
And I saw a little bit of that defiant child coming up in me. I knew it was there, but I couldn't help it from,
I think it's really important to be super vulnerable with people you're collaborating with and tell them the honest truth about how you feel. And I think for Jim and I, especially in a business position, not just a relationship, but in a business, when we collaborate with each other and we're super open and vulnerable about where we're at and how we're feeling, it just changes everything so much. And I think it doesn't matter if it's your relationship with your realtor or your best friend or a work colleague or someone that you are connecting with on a business, you have to tell the truth about your feelings with your whole heart.
Yes.
And it makes such a difference.
People do have these communication things that they do that, they don't fall in line with feelings.
Yes.
And we ultimately have to deal with the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we do.
So we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here. I know we could probably talk for quite a while about this topic, and but we do have to end. So if you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
Just remember that you have infinite capacity to receive. And that as long as you are just open to that idea that you have infinite capacity to receive, that walking down the uncertain path is the way to receive all of the things that you are craving and wanting in the world.
Okay. That's a bit of wisdom, soulfire wisdom, I think. So thank you. Thank you for being here today. I always love talking to you and finding out what's going on with your world. So I'll be looking forward to seeing this vision come to life.
Me too.
So we'll have to keep in touch, and maybe we'll have you come back and tell us more about it as it develops.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kate. It's nice to see you.
Okay. And I'd like to thank the listeners for being here today. And I have a quote for you to take with you through your week, and that is, "Seeds of faith are always within us. Sometimes it takes a crisis to nourish and encourage their growth." And that was said by Susan Taylor. So we have another great show planned for next week. My guest will be Nikki Roch, and Nikki is known as a sales maven, and she will be talking to us about her selling staircase. And I know a lot of people don't really like that whole idea of sales and selling, but it tends to be a big part of our life, especially people that have any kind of business or work in the business world. And so there's a lot of I guess stereotypes and misleading information about what really sales is. And there also are a lot of bad salespeople. And my former career was in sales and marketing. So I've had that experience myself. And Nikki is, I think, one of the best salespeople that I've encountered. And that's why I'd like to have her on to give people some tips on just how to deal with sales and selling, especially if you're, a small business entrepreneur and you're working from home. You probably have to do some of that selling on your own. So be sure to tune in next week. That'll be March 31st and 3 p.m. And so I'm just going to say bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soulfire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.